I know you have heard about trust fund, and most probably you have heard about trust fund babies. But I know at some particular point, this is something that we hear in movies. We think about billionaires in movies. They talk about a trust fund. They talk about their babies. But let me tell you, when it comes to trust fund in the current world in Kenya, most families are embracing the idea of setting up a trust fund. And today, I want us to talk about trust fund, discuss what it is, who takes a trust fund, how you can be able to open one, and the reasons why you actually need a trust fund. Hi guys, welcome again to another episode of Financial Literacy. My name is Jane Dishu and I'm a financial advisor. So the first thing I want us to do is to define what is a trust fund. So a trust fund is a legal transfer of someone's entities or someone's asset to a trust. So what it entails is making sure that they hold these assets and they are going to transition or they are going to transfer these assets either to the trust children or maybe their spouse or maybe charity. So at this particular point, it's like you appoint a company or trustees and then they hold your asset and then they help you transfer those assets. In case you're not there, they're able to transfer to either of the three. I know you're asking yourself, why should you use a trust fund and maybe not another way of actually making sure that you're passing your wealth? So the first thing is to avoid dispute and misuse. So one of the things about a trust fund, they're going to have, it's not challenged by the court of law. So you bypass probate. At no particular point anyone can actually join a trust fund. So the people you selected are the people who are going to get that wealth. So there is no particular way anyone can come in to claim that they were not in the will, or they were not maybe in a certain arrangement or in the trust fund, and now they want to join in. And then the second thing is to make sure that you have a smooth transfer or transition of the wealth. I know at some particular point you have seen the court proceedings where if maybe you're 4 or 5 maybe next of kin or beneficiary, and then there is a dispute, you cannot be able to access the wealth of that particular person. But for a trust, they are going to go to the latter and make sure wealth is distributed the way you wanted. The other thing is to make sure that the wealth is accessed at the time when you wanted to. So a trust allows you to set a time when a person or the next of kin can be able to access money. So you can write down and instruct that they should access this amount of money when they are 25, when they are 26, and you write the reason why. And you can even go to the basics of you want them to access this amount of money to pay school fees for this particular school. So it's easy for maybe the trustee to also regulate and make sure the money is passed down the way you wanted the money to be passed down. And the last thing is there is the tax efficiency in some cases. So most of the trusts, they are going to have some tax exemptions, mostly when it's a cash fund. Most of the time you're going to find it has some tax efficiency, and most people use that to make sure that the wealth, when it's passed down, there are not tax implication into that. And let's get to some of these examples of trust funds and also companies that you can be able to get some of these trust funds. So we have 3 categories of trust funds, or we have 3 ways of getting the trust fund. So you can set a family trust. So basically this is where you write all your collective assets and then you get to divide on how they are going to be accessed by your next of kin. And then we have the unit trust. This is where like you get the cash value. So you're able to select different entities or different funds around the unit trust. So like you can get a money market fund and a unit trust. In some extent, you can also even get education policies. You can get some other investments around that. So for this one, it's called actually a cash fund. So at this particular point, you're like buying an asset and then you're buying it through a trust fund. So meaning there is also the regulation of passing it down, and also it's equally managed by someone else. And in this collective fund, the money is distributed. So the trust fund managers, they are going to decide on where they are going to distribute, and they are going to decide on where they are going to invest the different amount of money that you're going to put in the cash fund. And then the other one is the charitable fund. So most of the people get to a point where you want maybe to set a trust fund where this amount of money goes to charity or goes to a certain organization, but because it's not going to go right now when you're still alive, you want to set a trust or a trustee who is going to make sure that that is equally passed down successively. And then we have the estate plan. So mostly the estate plan is where you have all the collective assets. This is basically where you put everything that you own, land, assets, everything that you actually own. And then now it's equally managed. So at this particular point, you might be required to pay a certain fee because your assets are being passed down, or it's equally like selecting someone who's going to manage it for you. Some of these companies that actually offer these trust funds, you can look at ICA, Lion Group, you can look at Britam, and also we have Stanlib. So these are some of the companies that you can be able to get the trust fund. Let's get to the basics of how do I set up a trust fund, or how can I be able to get started in a trust fund. So the first thing you need to do is to identify the goal that you actually have, or the reason why you want to set a trust fund. So you're going to decide, are you going to set a trust fund because of charity? Are you going to set a trust fund because maybe of your family or something close to that? And then you're going to identify the structure of how you want your fund to look like. And then the second step is to decide on the assets that are going to go to the trust fund. And then you're going to list them. This can be land, shares, can be any investments that you hold, or any liabilities that you also have. So you're going to put all of them in a trust fund. The other thing is to make sure that you also get to consult a lawyer so that they help you on deciding on how you can be able to pass down the wealth, or how you can be able to divide when to access this wealth for your next of kin, and how to access this particular wealth so that the trust stay guided. Then the other process is to make sure that you decide on which company you want to work with. So I have mentioned some of the few that you can be able to look into. And in case you would want to set up a trust fund, this is where I come in as your financial advisor. I'll be able to help you from process one, from the application process, all the way to making sure that your trust fund is actually funded, which is our last process. So after you have decided the company, now you're going to fund your trust fund, and you're going to put all the assets there, and that's it. You have a trust fund. It's running and up. And one of the good thing about a trust fund is, remember, you're in control of everything as long as you are alive. So as long as you're there, the whole of your lifetime, you have control. So you can make the different changes. You can be able to make sure that you have some different adjustments, so that you're able to make sure that at the end of the day, you have updated all the details the way you would want your wealth to be passed down. So these are three categories of people who can be able to actually get a trust fund. Remember, I said trust funds are not for only billionaires and millionaires. Anyone can be able to get this trust fund as long as you have some wealth somewhere, as long as you have something that you can be able to pass down to your next of kin. You can actually be able to set up a trust fund. So the first category of people, if you're a parent and you have a family, and maybe you would want to pass that down to your next of kin, this is something you can be able to consider. The second thing, if you're a business owner and maybe you would want to have particulars under the trust, maybe how to pass down your business ownership or your company ownership, trust is something that you need to go for. The last category, anyone who has any properties, any assets, if you have some wealth that you would want to protect, or you would want to regulate on how you pass it down, a trust fund is the plan for you, and it's something that you can be able to consider. I hope that you have learned something from this video, and I hope that you're going to have an easy time setting up your trust fund, and you don't have to worry about it. Make sure to follow me on my Instagram page to get my contact. And in case this video was helpful, make sure to share it with someone else who might like to know about this knowledge. And until next time, thank you.